Having a significant seasoned experience in science can definitely help with many facets of the business, especially leading a biotech company, because money can buy a lot of things, right? But money cannot buy innovation. You can't just go up to someone and say, give me a great idea. They got to be inspired. There's got to be, it sounds trite and simple, but by having the leadership that can ask the right questions and identify the issues, you can then have scientists find the solutions and the answers to those questions through innovation. Arcturus has been the conduit to express what I've always wanted to do professionally in my whole life. It incorporates a lot of who I am. I'm a scientist who's always been curious, who's always wanted to invent and discover and innovate. Back in 2013, was feeling entrepreneurial. I found someone to do it with me. Dr. Pad Chivukula, our Chief Scientific Officer. Pad was an expert at the RNA, and I was an expert in the delivery technologies.
Joe's got a fantastic background as well. He's a chemist. He worked on numerous small molecules, but mRNA was a new area for him. What was a new area for me was that small molecule chemistry.
Joe is someone who has fire in the belly. He has what it takes to make the company a success. Pad is a very bright scientist, and both of them are able to create an amazing culture where people work extremely hard because they have a sense of purpose.
Also need to be tested in vivo and then to see how it works, bioactivity and everything.
So you're going to make both isomers?
Yes.
And then compare?
In 2013, I was the first individual joining the founders. I usually don't take risks unless I have a very strong gut feeling that this is gonna be different. And this felt very different from the get-go.
It sort of started out as a family, all sharing this common passion, very intelligent, very motivated people who want to make a difference.
In order to start the company, you need some finances. And Pat and I essentially liquidated our bank accounts. We emptied them. I had $10,000 and Pat put in $5,000. What a small amount of money can do is provide a short runway and the necessity that's required to innovate. We needed to discover something, or else we'd be out of business fairly quickly.
People are always questioning what's new about your technology. How do you know you're going to succeed? We had an idea. We had a business plan. mRNA is new today. In 2013 and 2012, when we were thinking about it, it was probably a handful of people that understood anything about this stuff.
Pat and I had early ideas, and we started to write these down. And the idea that ended up being so successful was something that I wrote down, signed and dated for intellectual property purposes, but it wasn't in a fancy notebook. It was just papers, back of napkins kind of stuff, right? We wanted to design a lipid called nanospheres or nanoparticles that successfully delivered the RNA inside the cell.
We knew that mRNA on its own cannot get inside the cell. So if this delivery technology, this platform could take the mRNA and get it into the right place, then we could figure out what to use it for. That was the idea for the company. And at the time, in 2013, the mRNA was a dream.
I'll never forget the morning. It was a September morning in 2013, It was on a Sunday morning. It was like 7 a.m. And Pad called me, and all he said was, check your email. That's when we saw the first data. It was the best data we've ever seen in our entire career. The date of that document is March 13th, 2013. Our first day at work was March 4th. So this is 9 days after, but this was the foundational idea for the technology that set up Arcturus. The reason why the data was so exciting is because we identified a delivery technology that could safely and effectively transport RNA molecules to where it needed to be. That's why there's extraordinary interest right now in messenger RNA vaccines and therapeutics. If something is missing in your DNA or something dysfunctional, a messenger RNA molecule can come in and address that problem and replace the protein that you're missing.
The majority of the diseases that we're seeing in people is because you inherited a bad copy of a specific protein.
Everything starts with DNA, is converted to messenger RNA.
The blueprint to make protein is your mRNA.
It's actively making proteins 24/7. Everything in your body was made. The glaze on the surface of your eye, the saliva that you generate in your mouth.
So the mRNA tells you to either make the right protein or the wrong protein. Our mRNA circumvents the blueprint that was given from your mom and dad. It just puts in the right blueprint so that you can make the right protein. But when we give RNA into our bloodstream, into our muscles, it will disappear very rapidly because we have lots of enzymes that will recognize this RNA and denature or degrade it. So we have to have a way to protect this RNA. That's where LUNAR comes in. Think of LUNAR as a delivery technology, as a molecule that can encapsulate and hug the mRNA. It hides it from the enzymes.
After the RNA enters the cell, it's trapped inside an endosome. But if you don't break out of the endosome, then the RNA is useless.
But now how does this protected RNA get where it needs to do its job of self-replicating, of making the spike protein to make a vaccine or making a protein to address the rare disease front? So what we've engineered, and this is what took us a long time, to deliver these encapsulated mRNA, we use something called endocytosis. We call it acidic pH. Once it becomes acidic, our nanoparticles fuses with the membrane and releases the mRNA inside the cell.
When Pat and I co-founded Arcturus, RNA wasn't very popular.
The idea of using mRNA as drugs was, for most of it was science fiction.
Big Pharma had spent billions of dollars and threw in the metaphorical towel. They said, forget this stuff. It's too crazy, it's too challenging, it's too complicated. This isn't a path forward. And the reason we set up a company during a time where most of the scientific community thought it was not a good idea is we knew it was a good idea.
Because once you have this platform, a lot of people would come to us to use our technology to deliver their drugs. In late 2013 and early 2014, we were having discussions with J&J. They came to us and they said, hey, we want to use mRNA, but we don't have the expertise to deliver this molecule inside the body. Can you guys help us?
You only have enough money to make 4 things, and the second one ends up not only being a success, but allows us to ultimately execute a $175 million deal with the #1 pharmaceutical company in the world. That is extraordinary.
We grew from, 2 people, all the way to, close to 200 people.
And that just takes us today, where Arcturus is a late clinical stage messenger RNA vaccines and therapeutics company, publicly traded right here in San Diego with 4 sites on Science Center Drive and global manufacturing footprint, and it's like a whirlwind. But it all started with that first date on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m.
The COVID-19 pandemic really catalyzed one of the most rapid medical developments in history.
Years before the pandemic, the WHO warned of mutating SARS and mutating flu. We were warned years before, but no one was listening. And what the pandemic did is it put an extremely high sense of urgency into accelerating this technology.
The race to develop a vaccine for COVID-19 continues.
Biotech company Arcturus Therapeutics in Torrey Pines is working on creating a coronavirus vaccine.
We heard this news that all the companies need to shut down. And we are in San Diego and we are part of this California rule. But our company cannot stop. We have to have our employees come into work because we are working on COVID-19 vaccine.
What does it mean that it's going to come from potentially from Asia, come to the US, come to potentially California? What would that mean for our family, you know, if we were affected by it? So of course, everyone was very nervous at the time because we didn't really know what to expect.
I made some calls. I even contacted the mayor of San Diego office. And soon after, they assured me saying that your situation is different. And once we got this, confidence that no, we can continue, our employees knew that they need to come back because we need people in the lab for this vaccine.
When you're a race against time, we have the right technology that can be designed very quickly and manufactured very efficiently.
A COVID-19 vaccine from US-based Arcturus Therapeutics has recently begun human trials and could provide the vaccine to dozens of countries around the world.
Now, in future years, the pandemic is going to fade into a history that parents will describe it to their children and their children will look blankly at them. What's clear to those of us now who work in this particular area is that this is a turning point for messenger RNA.
It's changed medicine forever. Once you've made that one construct, you can treat innumerable number of diseases using exactly the same technology.
When SARS-CoV-2 first came out, it was an epidemic, not a pandemic. People were just like, oh, it looks like another SARS thing happened in Southeast Asia. But I'll remember my first conversation with Singapore where there was at least a cause for alarm, and because they were communicating this is very serious and we need access and insight into your new what we called STARR technology, the self-transcribing and replicating RNA technology.
What that means is this mRNA goes inside the cell and the cell knows to make copies. And what that helps is to reduce the dose. Maybe this could be a solution to COVID-19 and a different solution compared to what some of the other people are doing.
It was at that point when we were talking to the Singaporean government that I became aware that this epidemic could become a very serious situation. So they flew a team out here into this very room we're in right now.
Just getting the word mRNA into the public lexicon really helped to bring this field of therapy away from theoretical or speculative research into this powerful platform that we can leverage to really treat endless diseases.
We talked to the Economic Development Board, or EDB, in Singapore, and they gave us a grant for $5 million just like that.
San Diego-based Arcturus Therapeutics is planning a human clinical trial this summer for their potential offering.
And once we received the grant, it was all hands on deck, and we generated the data very quickly. In less than a couple of months, we were able to show proof of concept that it wasn't just equivalent to the potentially other vaccines, but it was superior, and we were able to publish that as well. So all that happened very rapidly.
Outside of the historians of science who will recognize this, and this may be a Nobel Prize in the future because of the way it's changed, the way we see things. But we don't know whether people will see this as the same way as the double helix, something that so fundamentally changed our understanding that it's unforgettable.
A good analogy is to look at the tech world and software and think of mRNA as this biological software. Because life is this most basic form, just the flow of information, your DNA being transferred into RNA and then being transformed into your proteins. They're the building blocks of life. And so with that came so much interest and funding and really marking a turning point for the whole field of pharmaceutical innovation.
There are some passionate investors. They're doing this not only for money, but for the patients. Our team has helped raise about $500 million in funding from investors.
For me, it's been particularly gratifying as somebody who worked on mRNA before the pandemic and before most people knew what it was. We as the scientists really had faith and believed in it because we saw its transformative potential.
We didn't have the luxury of putting in multiple programs into the clinic. We had to choose one. So we decided to go with self-amplifying mRNA, which was correct. However, there was 2 different antigen presentations. And I'm going to use my hands. You can present it like this, or you can present it like this. And we did not know. The world didn't know which one was right. And we proceeded, unfortunately, with the one that didn't work as well.
The phase 1 studies were disappointing because the initial data sets from what we saw from the preclinical studies didn't translate very well into humans in our phase 1 studies.
So we had to repurpose the vaccine with the same self-amplifying mRNA technology, but this time expressing the antigen that looks like this. And that was far more effective.
Once we did that, we started the second trial, and that second trial was phenomenal. But the only way to prove that this would work from an efficacy perspective was to do very, very large trials. And at the time in Singapore, it was much, much smaller, very, very small trials.
And along comes Vietnam. Now, the Vietnam story is extraordinary because COVID is also known as SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV, the first one, was very successfully managed by Vietnam. They shut down the border and didn't let anybody travel. SARS-CoV was contained, controlled, and went away. Well, SARS-CoV-2 came along, and what do you think Vietnam did? The exact same thing. And it worked for Alpha, Beta, and Gamma variants. But then along came Delta. And Delta was extremely tragic. The original variant was nothing compared to Delta. And now you have a country who had no vaccine strategy that was desperate. And so they said, we will work with you to accelerate a large trial with your vaccine.
And we were able to ship drug and make a collaboration with a local company called Win Biocare.
And it was an amazing experience. In 38 weeks, we went through phase 1, 2, 3A, and 3B, and 3C, over 18,000 people in 38 weeks. This is between 8 to 12 years of clinical time that was accelerated into less than a year. And we proved that our vaccine was safe and effective against the Delta variant. We went through a competitive process that ultimately ended up in us doing a vaccine collaboration deal with CSL as they can help us distribute this vaccine globally. The traditional vaccines that you and I, we've been given for the last 100 years,
The footprint that those vaccines take up is enormous. To make a flu vaccine, you need a plant that you're going to be spending approximately $1 billion to construct. But on the other hand, if you had mRNA as the drug that you're using to make the vaccine, you could construct that at a fraction of the cost.
We had a very exciting new technology, but we had to prove it. And Japan gave us that opportunity. We're partnered with Meiji and CSL, and they helped us put together a phase 3 comparison trial.
A head-to-head study using the ARC-154 vaccine against a competitor. And in this case, we decided to choose Comirnaty, which was the Pfizer vaccine, and we did a head-to-head, very large 800-person subject trial where we gave our drug as a booster or Comirnaty as a booster.
Pfizer's Comirnaty was such an amazing story. It sold billions of doses and helped save just countless lives. Some would consider it to be the most successful pharmaceutical product ever in the history of the pharmaceutical industry.
How do we prove that this vaccine, the self-replicating platform, is better than the other platforms?
As a small company, if you're trying to show that your product is better than another product, that is a formidable challenge when you're going up against a very large competitor called Pfizer.
We have, with the COVID vaccine, the first human efficacy with a messenger RNA. So where do you take a new technology into? Well, rare diseases, because rare diseases have such a high unmet medical need.
It was kind of heart-wrenching for me to learn that they're sometimes called orphan diseases because most of these larger biotech companies or pharmaceutical companies don't really pursue developing therapies for such a small, population set.
So this is a decision that the company made to play a role in orphan diseases because it believes it's a major need for the patient and for the family.
At Arcturus, we have rare diseases in our pipeline that we're passionate about, a rare lung-centric disease called cystic fibrosis, and a rare liver disease called ornithine transcarbamylase deficiency.
I'm glad that we're all here for the second annual Rare Disease Day celebration. OTC deficiency is a deficiency of the enzyme called ornithine transcarbamylase.
And OTC, the enzyme, is made by a gene to work in the liver to recycle ammonia to urea. But in some people who have a genetic abnormality of one of those enzymes in the urea cycle, you cannot metabolize the ammonia to urea properly.
We have no idea what OTC deficiency is. They tell us that our body has a deficiency and that I'm the carrier and I passed it to my son. We were blindsided. Payne, he was healthy, or so we thought, and then it just happened so quick. He's talking to me at one point, and then a couple minutes later, he can't track me. And so that's when I knew, I'm like, something is so wrong.
It's a genetic disease. It's called an X-linked disease, which means it's on the X-linked chromosome. Boys are affected more than girls because boys only have the one X chromosome. They don't have another one that can balance it with a normal gene. And so girls still can have it, but it's usually less severe than in the boys. When ammonia accumulates, ammonia can affect the brain and cause a myriad of different symptoms, including coma and death in some cases.
He is just laying there and he looks like he's sleeping. The ammonia levels were raising so high. Payne's doctor ended up pulling me and my mom came with me into a room and sat us down and just said, it doesn't look good. There's just a bigger picture to Payne's story. It's not just him. 7-year-old passed away from some genetic disorder. So that's why I do what I do, or my family does what they do, and to tell Payne's story.
Rare genetic disorders, they're not what you would typically call druggable, but mRNA from the beginning was a technology that could treat many of the undruggable targets.
It is not a disease that goes away. It is burdensome. One of the first things that they start developing as the ammonia level goes up is brain swelling.
I was so out of it and incoherent, and my aunt who was with me at the time was like, something's not right, we need to get her to the hospital and do an ammonia blood test, because that could be the difference between life or death for someone living with this disorder. The ambulance guys strapped me down to the gurney thing, and then were sticking me with IVs. All I remember is just screaming at the top of my lungs.
The mRNA therapy that Arcturus is developing and is in trials is a lipid nanoparticle that contains the messenger from the gene for OTC. If this mRNA therapy works and we establish a safe dose and a safe long-term protocol, I imagine it is going to eliminate the need for ammonia scavengers. It's going to eliminate the need for a special diet. It's going to take away the anxiety of when is the next hyperammonemic crisis going to happen. It's going to allow people to get sick and have the flu or have a surgery without the anxiety of, are you going to develop hyperammonemia and go into coma?
We're focusing attention on 7,000 rare diseases for which 300 million people worldwide suffer. So I had the pulmonary and rare disease clinical teams that takes compounds from discovery and preclinical development and introduces them into the clinic, where we can find out, 1, are they safe, and 2, do they work? Our other program is a cystic fibrosis program at Arcturus. It's a condition that is caused by mutations in the cystic fibrosis transmembrane regulator gene, which I'm now going to call CFTR for convenience. On the surface of your airway, there are these little projections called cilia, and the cilia beat in unison. On top of the cilia is the mucus and all the stuff that you breathe in, pollen, bacteria, viruses, and the cilia helps sweep it out of your lungs. What happens in cystic fibrosis is when the CFTR is absent or doesn't work well, the cilia, instead of beating, that they actually can't move. For medical training, which is also my alma mater, I was hoping to see something really transformational that would really get at the root cause of cystic fibrosis and fix it. And that's what we've seen in the last decade or so with what's termed modulators of CFTR function. But the one category that is not covered by CFTR modulators is the one where there's absolutely no protein made whatsoever. So you can't work on it. It's not like a dented car that you can try to fix. The car isn't there. You have to pretty much make it anew. That's what attracted me to go to work at Arcturus. Because Arcturus is one of the companies that's working on creating something where there was nothing there to work on in the first place.
The solution is clear, and that is you inhale a messenger RNA therapeutic, then these messenger RNA molecules get inside these cells in the lung, and once they get inside, nature takes over and creates a completely normal CFTR, a transporter.
So if one can restore the CFTR to the membranes, then hopefully that would solve all the problems. That's going to the root cause and help the body fix itself. The ultimate goal is to be able to treat young children before they develop the chronic changes of lung disease and be able to prevent that from happening in the first place.
Now, the entire pharmaceutical industry is over here. It's in the business of suppressing disease, whether it's cholesterol, pain, inflammation, swelling, headaches, whatever it is, it's suppressing it. Cancer, suppress, reduce disease. But that disease was caused by what? By a protein that was missing. If you can just simply replace that, all those diseases can go away.
Once we prove that we can give the right blueprint to cure a disease, it gives us a lot of excitement that this can be used for lots of other diseases.
You imagine having the ability to get these messenger RNA molecules to whatever cell type you want, to make whatever protein you want.
This could address the seasonal flu, for example. It could address OTC in the rare disease front. If any of those drugs become approved and commercialized, then I think we will open the floodgates, really. And then people will say, that was the spark. Now look at it today. We have not one, but 10 drugs, 100 drugs in the future.
So Arcturus is one of those sorts of stories where there was a lot of just exceptional and miraculous events that had to occur in order for us to be present in the same arena as other companies in this area. In order to get a product approved, you need to work with the regulatory agency and show that your product is at least equivalent to a product that's already approved. What came as a surprise is, as we've collected our phase 3 comparison trial study data, where we compared the Arcturus vaccine to Comirnaty, it was clearly not just equivalent, but likely superior. I had no idea I would be looking at data of our technology being superior to Pfizer's Comirnaty. You work so hard for so long to get that moment where you have an approved product. And so when you first see the data, you're like, am I reading this right?
This tech platform does actually perform better at a much, much lower dose.
The folks that we're competing against are 500 times larger than us. The most successful product in the history of the pharmaceutical industry. And we just beat it in a phase 3 trial.
mRNA therapeutics, what really makes it transformative modality of therapy is actually the elegant simplicity of the mRNA itself.
There's a long list of infectious diseases out there that human beings would like to be protected against. And this technology is now going to live into that potential in a very meaningful way. I'm fairly certain of it now.
We're really just, people with good intentions. we want to do good for the world. Ten years. We opened our doors in March 2013. What a ride it has been. It's a testament to the American dream and to entrepreneurship, that you can start a company with just $15,000 and build an extraordinary biotechnology company. And so just imagine what we can do in the next 10 years. To have an approved product is a very defining moment for a biotech company. And this small company out of San Diego pulled it off. So for us to accomplish this is just amazing. It's truly extraordinary.